Righto, so I've come up this morning, I've emptied the booze out, got all the parts out, it's looking pretty good. The peel is pretty much what I'd see on a factory car nowadays, and that's what these guys do every day of the week, and that's pretty much what our intent was. But what we plan to do now is the bits of tape on here are, even with all the cleaning and a good booth, you're still going to end up with a little bit of something in the paint. So if I can get it on the light here the right way, you'll see there, just here, there's a little bit of rubbish in there, and the next bit of tape up is actually a little indent, and that's normally like an oil or a bit of silicone or something. You know, we always talk about silicone problems. So with all the cleaning, there's still the one that we can find, which is a pretty good result, I can tell you. And then the other thing is, with most jobs, there's a few runs that the boys have got in there, so we'll show you how we're going to fix those as well. And there's a classic one around here, one for Trev, and we'll show you the process to get rid of a run. And then what we're going to do with this particular job is do a light sand. So we're looking, we might go even as far as 1,000 on the machine, and we'll just give it a buzz with a 150mm pad. We've also got some 77s for the tighter areas, and we're not looking to remove all the peel, but we're just looking to actually smooth it up a bit more than what it is, and get ourselves a quality paint job without it being the full-on, you know, blocked out hundreds of hours that I would normally do on a show car. So some of the other panels, to give you an idea, are all looking pretty good. Not too much rubbish. This plastic spoiler's not as flat as you would probably like it to be, but for a plastic panel it's come up pretty good. And I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone, but if you can hear the bang bang bang, it's because across the road there they've got the rock breakers in, doing a bit of work. Righto, so we'll get organised and get into it. Now there's one thing about painting a car, you're always going to end up with a run somewhere. So when you go into this process, so Terry might explain to us what he's doing here, because everyone's got a different theory on this, and I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different ways.
On here I've just got a razor blade with a bit of tape marking the edge so I don't scratch it, and I'm just lightly scraping the top with just a bit of a sag. It's not a big deep run, but it's there, it's noticeable. So we're just going to take it out slowly, and you've got to be very careful when you're doing this and try and get it down to a level surface, and then we'll block it and go from there with different grades of paper.
Now the thing is, this car's been baked in an oven, so the paint's already quite hard. So if you're going to do this and you're not baking it, you need to wait probably a couple of days, because if you try and drag it and it's still wet underneath, it's just going to pull the clear off, and I can assure you I've done that. So 2 to 3 days is always better for a heavy run. And when he's talking about the razor blade, what he's doing is just putting some tape on the edges, and that does 2 things. It stops the little points cutting in, but it also means that the centre of the blade's just sitting off the paint a little bit, and that helps you to just work the run and not work the sides. And there's a big difference between the really cheap blades and like a US made name brand blade. I've bought a lot over the years, and what I've done is the ones I find that work really well for this process, that I can put in my fingers and bend it a little bit as well. It makes the centre protrude a little bit, and it helps to actually take the run out. Righto, so we're just going to take on now and sand all this back. But before we do that, we've actually gone around, and anywhere there's been a little mark or a, you know, sometimes you get a dribble of paint, or you might get a bit of rubbish in the paint, and it's a little bit hard to see, but there's one there, and there's one up here that's already been done, and then there's a spot in the roof here that I think was a little low spot, and it's had a little bit extra clear put in it in the application that now just wants flattening out, because what we want to do is get rid of those highs before we go ahead and sand the whole thing, because we're going to sand the sides a little bit heavier than the roof, because the peel in the side here is a little bit heavier than the roof is. And you can see that in the light. So the process will be to try and equalise that orange peel. So we're not trying to flatten it, we just want to make it a nice factory style paint job. So what Terry's got is a couple of different tools here that you've seen us use on Boss XC. Just to explain what you got there, mate.
Okay, so what we've got here is a little 3mm, which in explaining that it's leaving little 3mm circles, denibber. Now a lot of OEM factories use these style once they come out of the baking ovens on the production line. They're quick and easy, versatile, no air hoses dragging over them, and they're quite a good little machine. Now you have a couple of different style of scallops here, which is what we call them. Your purple and your green. Your greens are finer than the purple. The purple's equal to around 2000. And you also have this little water bottle here that I've put a little bit of soap into it, so I'm going to get a lubrication. Now all it is a matter of dabbing it on here rather than dabbing it on there, because you won't be able to see the piece once you've done it. Okay, so we'll pick that out, and we just don't hold it in one spot, just move it around slightly like that. And what you'll find, that's virtually a bit more up here. Okay, we're going on that side.
So one of the issues here is that what you don't want to do is sand it too much, because if you flatten it right down, then you're going to have this nice flat circle in the middle of what is effectively a factory orange peel. So the ability to remove the mark without changing the peel is one of the tricks, and the next part of that is to go to a bigger one now. So Terry's just grabbed the other one, which is a 12mm.
There's a few different processes you can do this, Howard. You'll see even in some of the panel shops, some of the panel shops just might denib with that and they'll polish it straight up from there. But one way to feather that peel out is put a finer grain again, which I have some 3000 on here. A little bit more soapy water again. Now this machine here spins in a 12mm random orbital, just like a Bigfoot does. So if we give that a light area and feather the peel as we go, that way to the eye later on, you shouldn't be able to see where you've denibbed once you've polished it.
Now once again, the thing here is this paint's like a day old. It's been baked, but it's only a day old, so you don't need to hold it on there forever. It's really a very quick process. And then in the normal scope of things, we get some polish out that now and give it a polish. We're going to sand this. We might polish it anyhow, Terry, maybe. It's not going to hurt, is it? We can then sand it again.
We can sand it again.
Well, I think the little one will do it. So once again, battery operated. So this is 77mm and what I call a class as a direct drive. So it's a straight spinning machine.
Okay, so firstly, we have our 45, which is a coarse polish with a lamb's wool. This should bring this up fairly quickly. If you find you go straight to a foam pad, it can take you longer to bring the surface up. With a lamb's wool, we're not worried too much about the real fine scratches from the lamb's wool. We'll get them out later on. Small piece on the pad, give it a light rub in so we're not going everywhere. Just work your polisher back and forth. Once again, you're not holding it in one spot, you'll overheat the panel too much. Now the best trick, which we did mention before, Howard, in our previous videos. So from here on, if you just wipe it over with a rag, and you'll have a look, and you might say, oh, it's buffed enough. But if you use the metho water, a light spray on there, give it a wipe off, And then if you haven't buffed enough, you should be able to see in that area where there's still a few scratches. So we're going to go over that again with the Landsville before we move to the next pad.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it off there. I just wanted to show how that comes up and we keep that consistency, because we're going to now sand that panel. And we've got plenty of other bits and pieces we're going to show you with the polishing as we get down the track. Yep. Righto, so here we go. So this is one of those things that people go, wow, you just painted the car, now you're going to sand it again and then polish it. But this is that in-between way of doing it. I would normally cut this with a hard block with 800, then go 1200, then 15, 2000, 3000. Very long, drawn-out process. And on a complete car can add hundreds of hours and can cost anywhere between 20 and 50 grand on a full show car to do every part like that. So the idea here is that whether it's at home or whether it's in a shop, this process should be a matter of a few days, not a matter of a few weeks. So first we're going to do is going to even up the peel with some thousands. So we're only going to do certain sections with this. Then we'll go to 2000, 3000, and then we'll get the big buff out. So the lubrication is just water with a bit of soap in it, and obviously the process is to stay away from your edges. And this is a foam back paper, so it's got a little bit of forgiveness in it. And you'll see now, just check to see how that's going, how much peel that's taken out. So it's very quick. I mean, it's not like you've got to spend hours standing over it. When you're doing this sort of thing, you're better off to probably use distilled water out of a bottle, because I've been caught before where I've grabbed water out of the tap and there's a little bit of something in there that's come out of the pipe work or whatever, and if you get that underneath your paper, then you've got all sorts of pain to deal with. Righto, so I'm going to turn the camera off now and we're going to buzz that up and then we'll go on to the next grade. Righto, so now we're going to go with some 2000. So we're just going to do this quarter on its own. So the idea, normally we'd do the whole body, but for the sake of the video, we're just going to give this one a go with some 2 and then some 3, and then we'll put some polish on it, make it shiny. So the reason we're going through the grades is the process is the 1000 does the cutting, now the 2000 removes the 1000 marks, and then we'll go 3000 and remove the 2000 marks, and then the lambs will all take those out. So it's a steady progression of reducing the grit. Once you actually get down in your grits, you can actually start to see the shine come back before you even polish it. and you can still get a feel for how much orange peel you've got, and that's looking pretty good at the moment.
Now we're going to go with the 3000 to finish it off with.
So any little tips, Terry, to get a feel for whether you've done enough of that 2000 to get rid of the 1000?
Well, what I was doing there before was I cleaned the pedal in between coats with the metho water, taking off any sludge, and I can have a look around. If you can see there, I've sort of missed a bit.
Yep.
So we can go over that and fix that up. And you're not going to, once you've cut it, we will polish in a certain area and let's have a look at it. And if we're happy with that, otherwise we'll let it keep going.
Yeah, because the issue is if you don't do enough 2000, the 1000 is still going to be there after you've done your 3000. So you've just got to work through, and a little bit of it is experience, but you can tend to see it in that reflection once you clean it off. So this process is like anything else we do. You need to treat the machine like a block. So if you turn it up on its edge, you're going to leave a mark in the clear. So the concentration there on that Terry's doing is about the fact that that is a block, and if he goes over an edge the wrong way or something like that, then you're actually going to take an edge off. So it's really about making sure you treat that machine, especially when you're doing something like that, to make sure that you're treating it like a block and be very much aware of what you're doing with it. So the process we're going to use now is the Mirka system. So this is lamb's wool, and this is some of the best lamb's wool pads I've ever used. If I've done heavier cutting, I might go with a coarser one. So this is just a direct drive buff. So a lot of people would cringe about this, but it's the best way to get rid of your scratch marks before you go on to the next stage where you go foam and you can go orbital. Now everybody has their style with the buff. Some people press harder than others, but you really need just to have that nice consistent feel about it so that it's cutting away and always working over the edge, not into the edge. Now you can see there we've kept our orange peel, and that was always the intent. What we're trying to do is even it out a bit more, because we really are looking for that factory feel. Now that's out of the gun there, and we're just trying to replicate that now Now one of the advantages of having orange peel in your paint is the fact that if it's going to be a driver like this one is, any little movement in the body, if someone leans on it or something happens to it, it's not as visible. If you cut it dead flat and something happens to it, then you've got the dent guy coming out to push it back out because it becomes super visible. If you're looking to do something about the dust in your workshop, think about going to something like this Mirka system. Now I've been using it for a long time now. It's distributed by PPG in Australia. Great product. It's not the cheapest on the market, but it's a great product, and it will help you to not only keep your workshop clean, you'll get really good results as well. Righto, so we've moved forward a bit now. So we've done the 1000, 2000, 3000. When it come time to do the roof, we've had a bit of a discussion and decided that we wouldn't actually sand the roof because the orange peel now with that sanding process is very even between the quarter and the roof, and that's what we were really looking for and the reason we're sanding it. So I'll give the mic to Terry now, and he can just explain that process he's just been through, and then we'll move on to the next stage.
Right, Howard, so we've, as you see here now, we've just done all this with our Mirka 45 polish with the yellow lamb's wool on there, and the idea is now, before we go any further, otherwise you're going to be backpedaling later on, check over your work, make sure you don't have any dull spots, any scratches showing up. And one good way of doing that, once again, give it a wipe with your metho water and just have a look at the area that you've polished.
And that'll help take any residue from the polish out of the paint.
Because all your polishes now are water-based, and using metho water you'll take it, all that polish back off the top of it just to see where you're at. And the next step will be to put on this bit firmer pad, and as you can see with all the pads, they become different in the density. So this one's a little bit harder than that one, and so on down the line.
This is the new one, which I like, that one. So it's not the full soft black, but it's...
And you'll get softer once again afterwards. Now, with Mirka, they have the two. We have black and white in the 12 range. We're going to go the white, so a fairly light colour.
Okay. So once again, this is part of that process where we're now going to a finer scratch. So we go from the lamb's wool scratch after the sandpaper scratch, and now we're going to a medium foam pad, and then the final stage will be a softer pad with another polish. Righto, so he's been on that for about 10 or 15 minutes now with that the black pad with the black polish. So just tell us, Terry, what you're looking for when you're watching as you're polishing.
So as I'm polishing, I'm trying to take out any of the real finer scratches now, like the ones that have come off the lamb's wool pad, and any other, making sure there's none of those dull spots, which we should have got before. But I'm looking over that now, and with in the right light, that looks pretty good to me. There's no real dull spots. It's come up quite well. I can't see too many of the lamb's wool scratches in it.
So that, and then the last one really is the final polish.
Yes, yeah. This one here is your final polishing. Once you fit up the car, obviously you're going to go over it with a fine polish and a fine soft pad. But that's come up for something off the gun that's quite clean and good.
And I mean, that's what we're looking for with this job. I mean, we're not trying to do the full elite hard cut paint job, because the reality is most people can't afford to go down that track or are prepared to put the time in if they're going to try and do it themselves. So if you want to see how to do that, go and have a look at all the videos on Boss XC in that other series that we did leading up to last Summer Nats. So one of the issues we all have is getting a little bit of stuff in the paint. So it could be a bit of dust, it could be a bit of fluff, If you've used some Scotch-Brite, it might be a bit of that. And they just show up like that one. There's a little point sticking up and the clear's just stuck to it. So what we're going to do is show you a few different ways you can treat that. So I've got Trev with me at the moment. So I've got a single-sided razor blade that we all use in this industry. Nice new one. So Trev, just grab hold of that because I've got the camera. And what we do is put a bit of tape each side to protect ourselves from the sharp points on the blade. It does two things. It protects the point, but it also just moves the blade itself off the panel, the thickness of the tape. So if you've got a really big run and you're trying to pull out rather than doing just a D-nib, you can put multiple pieces of tape on there which will just make that gap a little bit bigger. And then what we're going to do is just drag that across. So pick any one you like, mate. There's a good one there, and it's really about getting a bit of angle on that and a bit of pressure and just dragging it across as flat as you can. If we stops halfway, you'll see so it's picked it up. So what we don't want to do is remove all the orange peel, because we're going to keep some of that, not all of it, but we don't want to flatten that right out. So if we find another one here, I've got the light. So pretty much all of those you need to do either a blade. Now you can buy like a tungsten block. Mirka make a sharp edge. I don't know whether you got that in your pocket, Trev, somewhere, or.
I can grab one of those shortly, but sharp blade. Different sharp blades are a little bit bigger than what the current ones on the market are.
Yep.
They're the ones that get out some pretty big, hefty runs, so they're fairly aggressive.
Well, we've got a couple of those to sort out as well, so we'll save that for that. Now, once you've taken the top off it like that, we'll just grab a little machine. There's a couple of options here. I've always used like a block, like that, with a bit of normal sandpaper, and you can use 1200 or 1500. What that tends to do is to leave straight scratches which are harder to get out, whereas the current technology is more to use a little D-nib machine. Now, not everyone can afford one of those, so I'm going to do one with the block I've got there, and we'll also do one with the machine. So if you're going to use the little block, you've got a few options. So you can use, this is Microstar, which is a very thin paper that I find good for this sort of work, or you can use your traditional wet and dry. So that one's a bit coarse, but it's just one I had there. And then the little block comes with a stick-on pad, so that's 1500. So I'm going to do one like that, and then Trev will show you how he would do it with the machine. Righto, so if I'm doing that with my little block, I'm just going to find the centre of that. So all I'm doing there is removing the scratches from the blade. So you can see here the main area I've got enough, and a little bit on the outside. So I'm just trying to spread it out a bit in relation to the orange peel, remembering we're going to sand this in a minute. So the next one over here, we'll do that with the machine. So with anything like this, the whole issue is to try and minimise the amount of scratches you're going to have. So we need to fix the problem, but in doing so we know we're going to scratch it. So Trev's just got the D-nibber, the Mirka D-nibber, and now what it uses is two different little papers that go on, so that the actual block on that's quite hard, very similar to what I just used, but the difference is with this is it's now going to be an orbital scratch rather than a straight scratch, which is a little bit easier to remove, especially if you're not going to sand the whole panel. So that's just a little bit of water with a bit of soap in it. And it's very quick. So that's now completely removed that. And you can see just how small that is compared to what I did here. So that, what's the first one, 1500 or 2000?
It's around 1500, so it's like P7. We start looking at a finer one, so that'll get out a larger piece of dirt in the paintwork. If you haven't got a large piece, we can go to the green.
Straight to the green,
yeah. So it's not as aggressive, and it'll get the dirt cleaned about. That'll be a lot easier to buff up.
I actually use these a lot when I'm doing full colour sand on show cars. I use these in around all the hard areas, in around Parkers and reverse curves and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
So this is the final one we can do. And the final one you can go over it again if you need to and feather it out a little bit further. So it minimises that peel, or sort of mellows it out a little bit.
So what we may do is, while we've got that there, is maybe just put the little 77mm lambswool on it and bring it up as if we were going to leave it like that. So what he's got here is the lambswool with the 45, so the Mirka 45 in the Polar Shine range.
You need like a little bit on there. Don't want to get too messy and throw
Yep.
around everywhere.
So in smash work, if they, it's ready to roll out and someone spots a little thing, it's a quick de-nib and then this machine and you're ready to go.
Battery operated too, so it's fairly portable. They don't have to worry about dragging the car back inside.
And what I like about it is it's so quiet.
Nice and smooth, very quiet, yeah.
And lots of grunt.
Plenty of grunt, plenty of torque on there.
So a lot of these technologies are developed so that they can match the orange peel from the factory. So, if you look at the paint that's on here now, you go, wow, it's got a lot of peel in it. But if you look at your car out the front, you'll find it looks very similar to that. So one of the efforts that these guys go to at the training centre is trying to be able to match those things. So you can see how quick that come up, but for my eye, I can also see the little circle that we've corrected. So that's how quickly that paint changes. And the boys were saying what they do, if it's a bad one, they would make this circle a bit bigger so that it blends into the side of the car better. So yesterday we did some polishing, and Terry just did a 1000, 2000, 3000 on the Merlon, which has got a foam backing on it, and I really wasn't that comfortable with it, but we progressed. Then this morning when I come up, I've had a look with John Hiristias and Trev, and we've sort of looked at it and decided that we weren't happy with that. So what we've done now is gone with a harder paper. So it's 1500 rather than 1000, but it doesn't have the foam backing. And I'm just running that over, and you can see there how that's sort of skimming over the peel, and what it's doing is taking the top off it. Now the other side, I've got that to a point now where I'm a lot happier with the peel. So that's just off the 1500. The machine's in the way there, I can't get through, but you can see the shine from that being sanded. And we did a trial on one of the doors, and you'll see here as I get over to that, so we've been messing around with the buff on that as well. So we're getting to a point now where we're getting more like this type of finish we were after. So if you watched the last episode, you would have heard where we said it was very humid, which just made it a little bit peelier than we would have liked, but we're happy with the way that's coming along now. And these lights are very, very, very harsh. There's so many of them. So what we're doing now is 1500 with no interface to take the top off the peel, and then going with 2000, 3000 Abralong, and then the lambs will to get to that point. So that'll be what we're going to run, and it's good that working up here with these guys, that the fact we had the quarters and the roof done, we've now I'm just sanding those at the moment, and Trev's over the other side sanding the other panels. So I'll be much happier with the result once that gets a polish on it. So we're just about loading up now, and I thought I'd grab the opportunity to have a talk to John, because as with all things, sometimes it's just the plan changes a little bit. Both of us are planners, but sometimes the best plan doesn't quite come out how you like. So I'm going to give you the mic, John, so that you can just have a bit of a chat. So we were sort of looking for a off the gun with a light buff. Conditions on the day and the process, the way we went about it, weren't quite how we would have planned. Just, if you like to just talk through now what we've ended up doing so that people can understand the process.
Yeah, look, I think, Howard, as we walked around the car, there was a few areas we thought were okay, but unfortunately when someone like yourself's been building cars for 30 years and you judge cars for a long time, it's a little bit hard to let things just slide. So there's a couple of areas in the sail panels we thought could be improved, a couple of things we saw in the doors, so we made a decision to give it a little bit of a harder block, particularly around these top areas on the side. And I guess, you know, when there's going to be thousands of people looking at this and being a little bit more critical, we just wanted to make sure that we were happy with the result. And, you know, it's not, we're probably maybe 200 or 300 hours away from Boss XC.
I would think as a minimum. I'd hate to think how many hours I actually had in polishing that car, but yeah. I know the paint process, we probably skipped 2, maybe 3 steps in this particular paint job. More so about trying to achieve a decent result without that massive cost of an elite car. Yeah,
and look, I think everyone that's looked at it, you know, has said initially it looks pretty good. I'd be happy to have this as my daily driver paint job, that's for sure. It looks pretty sharp. It's not, you know, maybe top 10 level, but it's bloody pretty good.
And I think the thing is, I have no doubt that once Kylie gets hold of it, she'll do a little bit here and a little bit there. That probably won't happen for this summer nats, but that's always that opportunity to be able to little 2,000 here and a little polish there, because there's always things that you can improve.
I think the key thing, Howard, is to really stay true to what the car started out as and what the objective was, and make sure that, you know, you meet that objective and don't go too far over the top. And a lot of custom car builders will ask you the question, say, yeah, how do we stop losing money on a job? And I think part of that is to stop where you said you would.
Yeah, and I think the expectation of the customers got so high as well now. They go to a show, and I mean, if you look at that XY now forged, now I've made the comment a few times because it's on their YouTube channel that they put 600 man hours into the colour sanding and polishing on the car and the components. Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me, but I'm sure it surprises a lot of other people. And if you put any sort of hourly rate on that,
yeah, that's right.
The polishing on the car is more than what most people want to pay for a paint job.
I think we talked about the amount of booth loads. I think Boss XC, Tailspin, you know, might have been a dozen booth loads.
Minimum, yeah.
Minimum, trying to get that to where it was just for paintwork. You know, this we've done in, luckily we've had the second booth, 2 booth loads. But, you know, it's certainly, I've got to say, it looks sharp. It looks really nice.
Yep. No, I mean, the Perrys haven't seen it yet. Adam's stuck on the M7, I think, at the moment. But I'm sure when they sit, they'll be happy as well. And I'll get it home now, and I keep doing these car backwards, so now I've got to go home and do the firewall and all those engine bay parts, get it back to Adam and Coley so they can put it on the ground. We want to put it on the suspension so that when it's on the PPG stand, make sure you come and have a look at it if you've been watching the show, if you're down at Summer Nats, and then I have no doubt they'll be putting it up on their page as once they go after Summer Nats.